what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Scream 6. So this is the 6th Scream film. I've seen everyone. I think I've reviewed a couple on here, not all of them. I've grown accustomed to how these sequels are, and how they are versus the original Scream. And the thing with this film, and how I viewed it, and how I kind of went into it, was that, like, in the first one, there was this kind of, meta plot or meta commentary on horror and slasher films while also being a slasher film. And it was really creative. It introduced my generation to a lot of that slasher stuff. It's specifically me. I know it did. That's why I rented Halloween. That's why I saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's why I saw like almost every film Randy says in that movie I saw because of Scream. And I know a lot of kids who did the same. And it felt alive, it felt new, it felt like kind of cool. And you kind of would hope as it went on, they'd keep adding to that kind of a thing, like talking about horror movies while it's going on. And they sort of just don't really. They talk about horror movies, they bring it up, it's like something that's there. But the usefulness and the kind of like purpose of what they're doing means less. Like in the original, they have Halloween on the TV because it introduces the slasher film, and there's like stuff what they're saying is going on within the horror movie, and it's kind of interesting. And then the others, like in this one, Invasion of the Body Snatchers is on. I have no clue why. It's a cool movie. I like it, but like I think there was also like in Scream 2, there was something on the TV. They would never just do just random horror movies, and now they just sort of randomly spew out references. So I'm used to that. And when I come into Scream 6, I'm like, it's a slasher in New York. I live in New York. That sounds fun. People getting stabbed. The places where I walk and go to work and stuff, that feels comforting, I guess. I wanted to see it for that, but I also was like, I'm used to a Scream sequel. Bring it on, basically. And I'm used to how these films are. They're about the kind of the franchise. They're about the kind of its own lore. They're about all that stuff. Is it about like horror movies right now? Fuck no. Like, I don't even think they brought up any A24 stuff, and that's all I hear about from people who are horror. Obviously they're not going to bring up like Skinamarink because that's too recent. But they're just like, I think they brought up stuff from the 80s and the 70s and stuff. I don't even think they brought up anything that was like from this decade. I don't think. Like, they really just don't. And it's not about that. And if I wanted to see that, I'd be really disappointed. But I didn't expect that at this point. I expected them to make a neat little slasher that takes place in New York City, but mostly shot in Montreal, or Toronto, or somewhere in Canada. I'm assuming. I don't know. But it wasn't New York, really. They did, they had some scenes, but it's fine. And I expected them to, to have a fun slasher with the characters from the 5th one, which I didn't like that much. And that's what I expected. And that's what I got. And if you're seeing it as a fun little slasher, and you know how these Scream sequels works perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. It does the whole, like, famous person gets killed at the beginning thing. It does have a twist on that, which is actually really clever. But it's just, the first, I will say it's one of the first Screams that doesn't take place in California. It's the first East Coast Scream movie. The Carpenter girls, which, by the way, going from Billy Loomis and his daughter and the other girl have the last name of Carpenter. Like, I know horror movies do let's have everyone called Jerry Argento or something, but like, Scream, calm down. Like, Jesus. It's just like Loomis, they're the Carpenter sisters, really? Like, I wonder when John Carpenter is watching a horror movie and they make a Carpenter reference, does he always go like, oh, fucking shit, again, and just like turns it off? Like, that's I would like to imagine. That'd be funny. But the Carpenter sisters, the younger Carpenter sister, played by Jenna Ortega, she's come to college, and her older sister has also come with her, played by Melissa Barrera, as well as the main people who are kids in the last one. They're there, and they have new roommates, and slasher stuff starts happening. Gail Weathers shows up. Neve Campbell doesn't because they wouldn't pay her enough money. The slashers going around killing them sort of one by one, killing the older sister's therapist, all sorts of stuff, and they have to figure out what's going to happen because they establish, and one of the girls in this mentions how they're in a franchise, so anything goes. Legacy characters can be killed, so everybody watch out. And so the stakes are raised for you there, and she does the speech Randy used to. She's kind of fun. You're off on your Scream movie, basically. This does sort of take place in New York. They do have it take place at a fictional school. I think it's called Blackmore or something. It takes place at Blackmore University, which I think like they pretend is NYU but looks like Columbia, and I will give them some credit because there's a lot more space than there usually is in New York City, but Columbia, it has an actual campus, unlike NYU. So I was like, okay, I'll give you credit for actually picking a neighborhood in New York that is semi-possible in. But the bodega didn't really look like a real bodega. I was like, I do live near bodegas like that, so it's not like the craziest thing in the world, to be honest with you. I think you could find a bodega like that fairly easily in the boroughs or up around there. But regardless, it's obviously not New York. It's like movie New York or Canada. But the subway scene is really good. They're obviously playing with it. Like, I don't see the lights go out in the subway that much. Like, I think that's be rather extreme. But it's never happened to me as much as it does in that. But it's like part of the fun of that. And it's a fun sequence, and there's lots of people dressed up from horror movies in that train sequence. I didn't love the new characters. Like, I could have given a fuck less about them in 5, or just called Scream. In this, I like them more. I don't know if it's because I'm just sort of stuck with them most of the time, and there's not a Dewey, and it's just Gale Weathers and stuff. And that seems to work really well. Maybe better. Maybe it was a better introduction that I'm not thinking about other characters I'm already attached to more. But I thought they all did a good job. They worked kind of as a team more so in this. I'm like more ready for them as a group than I was previously. So that kind of grew on me. I wouldn't say it's an amazing, like, this film is saying like sort of nothing other than like, let's have a fun slasher, which is disappointing because Scream did say something about horror and the genre and stuff like that. And when you get to this, you're like, oh, it's it's saying that it like doesn't, I don't really understand what it's trying to say. Hayden Panettiere is back from Scream 4, but it's just sort of like being a franchise film for the sake of it. Are these becoming like Fast and Furious films where like it used to be about stealing DVD players and now they're like in space and shit? It does feel like it's a franchise for its own franchise sake, and there's such a better premise there to have fun with. And I think that is always something that's bugged me about all of the sequels, is like they'll like mention sequels in a class in part 2, but it's like it's not really meta talking about sequels. And same with this one. It's like, I think what really is, this one isn't really saying anything about like franchises and how that goes and stuff. I mean, they like actually say it, but there's no meta text to it whatsoever, which I think has always hurt these ones. The change in location was a smart idea, actually. I thought that was really cool. Like that they actually had some fun, a little bit of fun with it, especially like I think the apartment building fight, even though that apartment's way too big for some college students. But they still had some fun with it. But they do sort of just like refer to things randomly. Like she mentions that she has like 2 jobs. You never see her go to these jobs. I don't even know what they are. Just watch the whole movie. Maybe I missed that part. It felt like a bunch of stuff happened, but it sort of was like watching a Friday the 13th film where it's like, you're here to have fun with Scream. That's basically what you are. You're here to have fun with the legacy franchise of Scream. And if you're here for that and don't want it to say anything weird or like say anything about horror now, then you're fine. But I do think like at a certain point I wish someone would take over these films creatively and do something meta about horror and like change it up and not just have it be about Sidney Prescott. And even though she's not in this one, or Gale or whomever, or the Carpenter sisters, it just shouldn't be about that anymore. Like we shouldn't be doing this shit. Like we should be having more fun with it. And that's something you always think. Like you always think with the Scream, or I always think with the Scream sequel. But the other thing is like I accepted that before I came into the theater. And I wasn't expecting a meta commentary because I knew it wasn't going to be fucking there. All right, it just wasn't. Like they're going to mention some movies. It honestly, I don't think the directors of this film watch current horror. Like we had a crazy horror year, and this is the Scream you put out. Like, are you fucking serious? But at the same time, I had a good time. Like I think it's a decent, fun horror movie. Does it hold up against like Smile or Barbarian or X or any of that shit? Not really. It is just like a mainstream good decent horror movie, but I'd say good is like a good enough time at the movies. We met expectations. We were fine. Good for us. But it just didn't, it's like you just wish Scream could say more. I think that is, it's such a wasted opportunity overall that you could do something. Instead, it's like, let's talk about Hollywood in general. And I'm like, I don't know if I need that. To me, I don't need that from Scream. I think Scream thinks that, but like, you're not gonna, I feel like the Halloween reboot said more about serial killers and true crime podcasting than this has ever been interested in doing. Let's have some more fun with these things. That's what I would like. They're fun to watch in theaters. They are fun. This was a fun as a slasher movie. I had a good time. It was a decent, fun movie. Like, I enjoyed it. I will always want more from this franchise, and I hope one day someone will do that. But until then, I like this more than the last one. I wasn't really into the New Kids last time. I think like this, I was like, I would see another one with like this, I guess, since this is becoming the highest grossing one. But I still am like, would still be even more happy if they got someone who was going to do something more meta and like a critical kind of thing on horror movies with these films, because it just feels like it's just there. That's what we really want. I don't care what happened to Sidney Prescott's mom or whatever. It's never been interesting to me. I really just want the interesting commentary on horror films, and I think is that this film failed. But at this point, I should fucking know better, because they don't really do that in these sequels. As a Scream sequel, as I know them to be, I had a lot of fun with this, and I think it's a good movie under those terms. So I should know better, and that's what it is at this point. I should know. It's the sixth film, and you should accept that that's how this is at this point. That's what this is. And under those guys, under genre, I guess we could even say, with the Scream films, totally makes sense for what we got.